Hey everyone, welcome back to the Law of Attraction Tribe podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Keith, and today I have Kristin Hamilton. She is a podcast host and certified life coach. She helps women in midlife who have lost themselves to rules, roles, timelines, and expectations and want to rediscover their identity and dive fully, boldly, and unapologetically into their lives. She guides them to clarity, confidence, and direction through her podcast, Edge of Real, which is amazing. And we will get into that shortly. She also does more in depth one on one coaching. Kristin's been a teacher, counselor, behavior specialist, and stay at home mom, and she brings this broad range of experiences into her guidance. She's the mom of two young adults who she loves more than chocolate cake with buttercream frosting. Kristin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This is kind of a dream for me. So I
Oh, I'm
so appreciate being here with you.
so excited. I'm so excited to talk to you. And first of all, I love that you more than chocolate cake with buttercream frosting. My
I mean,
my
just.
yeah, but my middle child is this is like a game she plays now every night before bed. She'll be like, I love you more than all the stars in the sky. And like she keeps trying to, we outdo each other.
That's
So
so
I'm going to
cute.
use that one tonight.
That's so cute.
I love it. So you and I connected because you were a student in digital CEO and you got your podcast going, Edge of Real,
Yep.
and had sent me the link. And, I put on my like teacher hat and I'm like, okay, I am going to really dive into this and critique it and make all of these notes of feedback. And I found myself doing something that I mean, I really never do anymore just because I am so busy with three kids. But I binged every episode you had at the time, which I think it was like 4 or 5 episodes at the time.
Mhm.
And I got to the end of it and I was just like, I need to reach out to her. I want to talk to you more. And so I told you, hey, if you're open to it, come on the podcast because the entire time I found myself just nodding along and being like, yes. It was like you were sharing something that I've personally gone through, and I think everybody goes through,
Mhm.
but we don't necessarily realize it. And the way you talked about it, I was just like, we need to talk about this on the podcast. So thank you for being here.
Yeah,
I'm really
absolutely.
excited to.
I'm so glad to hear that you enjoyed it, and that makes me feel really good because I you are a huge inspiration in me being able to get it started. So, yeah, means a lot.
Well, I'm so glad. And I guess let's start with that. Like
Yeah.
what all happened in your life and inspired you to get started with the podcast in the first
hmm
place?
Yeah. Well, so I'd been thinking about doing a podcast for a long time, but my idea, because I didn't want to be vulnerable in any way, my idea was, oh, I'll do a true crime podcast because I love those. And I was going to do like this hometowns thing and it was going to be really cool. And I thought about it for a couple of years and just kept thinking about it, doing nothing to actually do it. I have this habit of dreaming really big, but then at that time, at least, I would keep myself super small. So then in mid June of this year, I heard you on a podcast. I don't honestly even remember which one, but so then I immediately went and found your podcast, and you were then in my ear for 2 weeks straight. I listened to 60 episodes in 2 weeks. So I did
Wow.
the opposite of what you usually do. I just literally binged and binged and binged. So then, about 2 weeks after I started listening, toward the end of June, it just kind of hit me of, oh, I'm going to do this. And it made sense to me because I got my life coaching certification a couple of years ago. And so it made sense at that time to put myself out there and to, kind of give myself that push. And so I found, Podcast Creator Academy through your digital CEO. And I guess as far as the content goes, I really just followed my heart and my expertise on what I wanted to do. I realized that the idea that I'd been thinking was not something that I actually wanted to do. So I wanted to put myself out there more. I wanted to serve more women. Um, and this seemed like a way to do both. And I also wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to put myself out there. The people who know me know that I'm in theater. I'm an actor and or some on the side for fun. um, and for the last 20 years or so, I have loved being in front of people on the stage as a different character, but not as myself. Never, ever as myself. Um, Super private in my life and that kind of thing. So doing this was really a way to put myself out there and also feel like I was able to help people at the same time. Um, and we talked a little bit about this, Stephanie, but my idea at the time was to share my real life journey of my own rediscovery. And what happened as I got into even just the first couple episodes, I realized that I'm actually way more healed than I thought I was. And I'm way further along in my own rediscovery than I realized. I just hadn't settled in. I just hadn't allowed myself to really settle into the fact that I'm doing okay. And
Yeah.
this has given me the opportunity to really see that about myself. And I think that positions me a lot better to be able to help other people through it too, because I'm so much further along in that than I realized I was.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things I liked so much about listening is you weren't really talking like I'm the expert and I'm teaching you. It was more like like we're on this journey with you and you're kind of guiding us. And you are so vulnerable from the very beginning. And you and I had talked a little bit before about this. Um, how did you do that? I mean, I that blew me away because here I don't even know how many podcast episodes I have, but I still to this day struggle with that,
Mhm.
with putting things out there and being really vulnerable. But when you do that, the connections that you make, it's just instant. It's like I told you I felt like you were my kindred spirit or something. Like we just
Mhm.
bonded over the podcast. Um, but was what got you to that point where you could do that?
Mhm.
And is there a specific moment in your life that where you just kind of realized like I'm not playing small anymore and I'm ready to put myself out
Mhm.
there?
Yeah. I don't know if it was a specific moment as much as just a a pile of things that just kept coming at me, and I realized more and more that I've been so private in my life, and partly that was that I was in a position, a relationship that was had things going on that I didn't want anyone to know. And so I kind of had to be private about it. In my mind, that was how I felt about it. And so then that, of course, got me into the pattern of being private and of not being myself. And I had a lot of masks. I had a lot of not really even knowing who I was, feeling like I was just kind of this shell of a person. And I think when I went through my divorce, which has been, geez, 9 years ago now, so it's been a long time. Um, but when I went through that, there were a lot of things that I held back on, but then also a lot of things that I tried and tried to discover kind of for the first time. Yeah, I don't know that there was anything specific. I think I just got to the point where I was tired of keeping myself small.
Hmm.
And the the challenge to myself in order to keep growing was this was the next step, was knowing that I had to stop putting up the walls and stop putting myself, putting up a high wall and putting myself so far behind it that even if people tried to climb over it, I was still nowhere to be found. That's how much I distanced myself, my real self. So I think this was just a challenge to myself of can I do this? And feeling comfortable enough in my story and in myself by this point because I've done a lot of work. I've done a lot of work on myself.
Hmm.
And it's hard. It's hard work. But yeah, so I've gotten comfortable enough in myself to know that it's okay to put myself out there. And if people don't want to listen, don't listen. Move
Yeah.
along.
Yeah. I love that mentality. I feel like it's so freeing too, after spending years and years and years hiding behind these masks to finally just put yourself out there. There's something bigger that I feel like happens beneath the surface. It's like you're expanding your consciousness, you're raising your vibration. A lot can come from that vulnerability and that authenticity. And I have to tell you, I have to tell you this story because thought of it when you were talking about masks, wearing masks on your podcast, and it just clicked with me. It was like this memory that was in my subconscious, just boom, it just came to the forefront. It might have
Oh,
been with one
cool.
of the journaling prompts that you gave, but um, I was in sixth grade, and my best friend Abby and I were in that class with this teacher, and the teacher loved me, did not like my friend. It was like, she had her favorites and she made it known. And at the very end of the year, she pulled me aside and she said, Stephanie, you are going to go really far because you know how to play the game and you know how to wear masks very well. And she said, Abby, she gives you she gives me these dirty looks. I can tell when she's mad. But you might be mad, but you hide it really well. And that's going to serve you in life. And I mean, she gave me this whole talk about how it's good to, hide your emotions. And as a sixth grader, didn't think anything of it, but I went and told it.
Right.
Still to this day, Abby and I like laugh about this story because she's like, that teacher hated me. And I'm like, I know, it was so weird, but we laugh about it now. But it came to the surface when you were talking about all these masks that we wear. And I feel like that was an instance in my life where it was like I was taught something that I carried with me my whole life
Mm-hmm.
and didn't even realize, which
Mm-hmm.
is like I have to put on a mask for every single person I come in contact with. And I have to
Mm-hmm.
be like a certain version for everyone around me. And it's not okay to say what you
Right.
really feel or show
Right.
your emotions. And I'm not saying it all came from that one teacher. I think there was
Right.
probably a lot of programming, but I think it's common. I think it's something we all do, but we don't realize that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my question is, what do you see in your work or in your own life with all of these different masks that we wear or roles that we
Mm-hmm.
play? What even are those? Like how do you even realize you're doing it, I guess?
Right. Right. Um, I think with these roles that we take on, partly they're put on us like that was with you. That was not yours to have to carry. That was someone else's story, right? And yet she put this on you of, oh, this is how you are. You are someone who, is good at covering up your feelings and is good at wearing a mask and projecting sense of everything's fine.
Hmm.
But that was her story. And yet you've, I guess, had to carry that in your life. Um, oh, and now I've gone on a tangent and can't remember quite what the question was. Oh,
Well,
my cat's coming to say hello.
okay, this is funny. Not every podcast, but like literally everyone that has a cat that comes on the podcast, their cat comes to like say hello. So hi, cat. I guess they like my voice or something. I don't know.
Yes,
Maybe they just want to be on
yes.
the camera. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like, again, like it's all happening without us realizing it. I think it's all happening subconsciously, but I think
Hmm.
when she pointed that out, it was like something in me was like, oh, so this is how I'm supposed to behave, and
Yep,
that means like I'm a good girl and I'm gonna do good in life. And
right,
it was like just reinforcement of like, yeah, you should keep it zipped up and not
right,
really show what's going
right.
on. Um,
But it's interesting too, because for her to have felt that that was something that was uh, such a good quality in you must mean that it's probably something that she values in herself.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
so again, then that's, she's put her own story, I hesitate to call it a wound, but she clearly had something going on with that. And so she then put that on you. And it's so interesting, these these uh, expectations that either other people put on us or that we put on ourselves, that, you know, these aren't our things to carry. These aren't our
Right.
wounds to carry. We carry so many of, our parents or our, crazy ex-husband or teachers, we carry so many of their beliefs along with us, and they become our own limits that we put on ourselves because someone's told us that this is how we are, this is the way it should be. Um, yeah, and I think then that becomes ingrained in us, but to remember that it isn't ours, it's theirs. And that's where the challenge comes, right? That's where you know, challenge it with awareness,
Mhm.
challenge it with, is this is this true?
Yeah.
That's one of the best questions you can ask is this true? Is
Right.
this really true about myself or about what I believe? Um, I
I
also
feel like
think
just
that,
asking that question can literally make like a mask fall away
oh
because
yeah,
you're it's all subconscious, but the moment you bring awareness to it, it's like the, you know, curtain comes down and you see everything.
oh absolutely.
And I don't even think it was just that teacher. I think our society, um, it, people in our society aren't necessarily saying it like that teacher did, but there's a lot of implications for it. It's like if you're the kid in school that's so constantly emotional, you're like labeled like the bad kid or the disruptor, or there's all these
Yep.
labels. And then if you're the employee in the workspace that says what how you really feel, like you're probably going to be, getting written up or on the chopping block.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all these little subtle cues too
Mm-hmm.
that happen, and it's sneaky, and next thing you know you've got this whole big brick wall built
Yep. Yep.
because it's dangerous to show what's really on your heart,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm. And that's another interesting thing where, the when that meshes with a certain role that we have, a certain expectation with, if, just completely, for example, mesh that with, the mask thing, being able to put on masks with becoming a mom. And all of a sudden, maybe you then become this mom who doesn't want your kids to ever see you be upset about anything. And so then that perpetuates even more because we go into our certain roles in our life with these expectations. Um, and again, sometimes they're not even ours,
Yeah.
you know, and yet we enter into our lives with all of that going on in there. Um, I think we were talking about awareness, bringing awareness to it and questioning it. Um, I also think I do a lot of somatic work within myself and with my clients, and I think that is huge in bringing awareness. Because when we can drop into our body, we can get out of our mind,
Yeah.
right? Um, yeah.
And that's something I really recently, I've always used different practices, but really more recently I've gotten into a lot of somatic work, and it's one of those things where I think I always told myself like, well, I don't have time for that, or I don't really need that. Everyone needs that. I
Everyone
swear
needs
it
that.
it unlocks something so powerful
Hmm.
because
It's
we are in our
amazing.
heads so much, and it really does, the best way to get out of your head, drop into your body,
Oh, totally.
and it can
Yeah.
be such a quick practice too,
Yep. Yep.
and
Absolutely. And to
quickly
just
shift.
like to find that point in your body that feels off, and that's to be able to drop into that. When I think about certain things, um, there's something called the paradox of transformation. Um, and that's basically the concept that the last place we're willing to look is the key to what we need or desire, right? So, the willingness to feel the opposite of something then unlocks what that is. If we want to be more confident, we have to embrace insecurity, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that, you know, allowing ourselves to drop into our body like that and to feel these sensations and to be able to go under a certain layer in order to release it and let that energy then move through your body is so important. And it gets us out of our head. We all think, oh, well, I can think my way out of something. Well, no, because then you're just perpetuating this thinking loop, and you just everything keeps going and going. But when you allow yourself to drop into your body, you can allow that energy to work through. And you don't have to go through all the thinking parts necessarily.
What's
Some
your
of it we can
favorite?
just release.
What kind of practices are your go-to for dropping into your body? I'm just
Hmm.
curious.
Um, so I think the main one for me that I literally do like every day is just a flat out check-in, where I'll think of, what is it that's bothering me, and whether it's something big or something small, and then go, where do I feel that in my body? For me, it's often my throat, kind of here down into my chest a little bit, almost always. Not entirely sure what that means about me, but yeah. So, and then allowing yourself to feel that, and allowing whatever that is to have the space, and then giving it the space, giving it that acceptance, um, allows it to just lessen,
Yeah.
allows it to release a little bit. I do meditate every day, and I have kind of my way of getting into that. Um, and I've gotten to the point where I can put myself into, I assume it's into theta. Of course, I haven't had any, brainwave, whatever, to be able to know, but I can feel it. And I can put myself into that really quickly. And so I'm able to really kind of go into my body and just allow myself that space to feel it. Um, I'm also fairly intuitive. I've spent a lot of time getting to know what the different feelings in my body are. and kind of bringing all of that into awareness. And so I really allow myself to follow my intuition with a lot of things in my life. And I feel really strongly about that. That's something I have a very strong opinion on.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that, that's the majority of it. I know a lot of people will do a lot of like yogic practices and breath work and that kind of thing. I don't really do that so much, but that maybe just is a matter of time, or I haven't necessarily learned it yet, those specific practices.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I was curious what you're drawn to because I feel like there's there's this perception that I always had that like, well, you have to, be a yogi and like you have to
Mhm.
meditate for like hours every day. But then getting into it, I'm like, some of these practices are so quick. And I mean, something you could really do even in a crazy busy schedule,
Yep.
but are so powerful.
Hmm.
I mean, coming from someone that used to have panic attacks, it's like,
Right.
I mean, I kind of knew my doctor, that's when I first learned about the 478 breathing. But it's like, had I known there's all these different tools that could have helped me
Right.
as I was going through this, man, things would be different.
Hmm.
But at least it's better late than never.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah, with my background in, public health and behavior specialist and that kind of thing, at one point I was doing some crisis counseling, and one of the biggest things that we would do with our patients and clients was the, you know, what are 5 things that you see? What are 4 things that you feel? What are 3 things that you smell? And you just kind of go through the senses, and that grounds you. It allows the looping in your brain to stop. I mean, and this is stuff that we would do with people in crisis.
Mhm.
And so it obviously is, I guess, scientifically proven to work. Um, but yeah, just knowing and again, the more you practice it, just like anything else, the more you practice these things, the faster you can get at them. And so while it might take you a while to drop into your body initially, the more you practice it, then you get to the point where, you know, I can drop in literally within seconds and see where I might be storing something in my body, and I can work to kind of, again, accept it, because that's then what will release it. And I've healed my own back pain with that, with feeling into it, and eventually it just releases. I mean, it works.
Well,
Stuff
all the
works.
pain is, if you lead down to the root of it, it's stored energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
tension that we hold on to
Yep.
without even realizing it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, with I want to just go back to this for a second because I'm
Mm-hmm.
telling you, like it's just you have this ability, I guess, to just connect with people in this very vulnerable way. So now that you've done a few episodes, um, does it get less scary, I guess, as you go? Because I mean, you just kind of dove in and shared a lot about
Yeah.
your life. And I mean, I guess the way to word it is it just feels real. Like you're not putting up any mask. Like you're just like, hey, like this is me.
Yeah.
And it's
In fact, this
so
is some of the most real that I have probably ever been. And oddly, it's to a lot of complete strangers. Um,
you
but
think it's
yeah,
easier because you're talking to strangers and or do you
I
like
don't
get
know.
down to record and do you get like worked up like, oh my gosh. Like does that come up for you still or have you just done enough work to get to the point where you're like, I don't care anymore?
A little of both. I definitely don't get to where I don't care, and I don't ever want to get to where I don't care. I want to be able to care deeply about sharing, but um, but still push myself to do it. And it is a push every time. And when I sit down to, kind of think through what each episode is going to be, and I want to share a, a story with each one. I don't entirely with each one, but I try to. Um, and, kind of share a part of me because I do feel like that helps people to feel seen. It helps them to know that they're not alone. The fact that I shared some of like some fairly, um, I don't want to say deep, but personal stories right from the get-go, I think has helped me, like, okay, well, I mean, I've already gone there, so it's
Mhm.
okay to go here also.
Yeah.
Um, my biggest thing with sharing my stories is I don't want any of my stories to speak badly of anyone else. And that's really hard when you're in some places where there have been hurts and pains and damage. Um, but there's been damage that I've caused and damage that I've felt or had caused or had put on me. Um, so I think that to me is probably the biggest thing that I really think about is how to word things so that I make sure that I'm being authentic and real and as raw as I can possibly be, but also not hurt anyone else
Yeah,
in the
I
process.
I don't feel like you would hurt any like I feel like everything you say, it's so this is why I'm so fascinated by it because I'm telling you this is just, it's so rare to see, but it's so like real and vulnerable, but also like very gentle and very like soothing. And I think, you're mentioning sharing stories. I think your stories were like unlocking my stories. Like the whole thing with the teacher. I'm like, I think that memory came up because you were talking about a memory of yours, like
Mm-hmm.
wearing these masks, and it's just like triggered something in me, like, oh, I have the same, like not the same memory, but the same
Mm-hmm.
thing that happened to me, and this is where
Right.
it's stemming from. So
And
it's
that's
powerful.
my exact hope. Hearing that just makes me feel so good because that is my exact hope that in sharing certain things about, my innermost thoughts or the things that I've been through or experiences I've had, that can allow someone else to be able to feel their own stuff, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, good.
I wrote down a quote from your show because it was one of those things that just like hits you, and it was
Hmm.
about unbecoming what you're not so you can remember who you really are.
Hmm.
And I
Yep.
was like, that is really powerful. And so I guess with that, what would you say to listeners that are kind of like waking up to realizing that maybe they don't feel very aligned? Maybe there are a
Hmm.
lot of masks that they're wearing. Like, what would be the first step they can even take on
Hmm.
that journey of like unbecoming what they're not? If that makes
Right.
sense.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Um, it's about making space for yourself, I think. Um, I'd want them to know that it's okay for things to feel scary because if things are unknown, unknown feels unsafe to us, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so it's scary to think of unbecoming because that sounds really scary. That sounds really unsafe. And of course, you know a lot about the nervous system too, and that, our body's like, whoa, hold your horses here. I don't want to get into this. Um, I think that someone who's feeling this needs to be acknowledged for the fact that if they're feeling this in the first place, they've already taken the first step
Mm,
because they've already started to acknowledge that there's something that feels off, right? So then the next step, in my opinion, would be to lean into that, lean into the feeling, whether it's in your body or through journaling, and ask yourself, what am I not acknowledging? What's in there that I'm not really wanting to see? You
hmm
know, I think that women, I touched on intuition a little bit earlier, but I think that as women, we're a lot more intuitive than we give ourselves credit for. And I think if we allow ourselves to live in that feminine energy, we can find the space to let ourselves expand
hmm
and um, and give ourselves permission. We have these points in our life that cause friction, that we feel that something's off, but we don't allow ourselves to really dive into that. But I think if someone is in this place where they're questioning it, then probably some of the hardest part is already done in that they've come across that awareness already. And
Yeah.
then it's just a matter of having the courage to dive into that and really see, you know, see if you can put trust back in yourself
hmm
so that you can acknowledge that you've got this. You have the answer. You just need to allow yourself to settle in to what you're feeling enough to allow that answer to surface and then be willing to do the work to get wherever it is you want to go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. When I on my 30th birthday, I the whole idea of identity, like that was the big awareness
Yeah.
that I had because, I'm 30 now. And so I look back at my 20s and it was really hard. Like so many people were partying on their 30th birthday. I was like crying because I looked back and I'm like, okay, I had the identity of my job and of being a mom, and that was it. That
Yep.
was it. There was
Yep.
nothing else that I could pinpoint that
Mm-hmm.
was really like in my mind at the time like worthy of anything, but I was just
Right.
like I'm so wrapped up in these
Mm-hmm.
identities and um I was just thinking like it's not what I want to be known for. Like of course I want to be a mom and like my
Right.
daughter is everything to me, but like what am I doing with this life? And it turned into this
Yes.
big thing of like, I
Yeah.
need to figure this out. And that's what
Yeah.
led to this. I mean, the
Okay.
one thing I could think of that I wrote down was like the law of attraction. I'm like, okay, why am I drawn to this? Like, what do I need to explore further? And
Mm-hmm.
it really opened up this whole path that I never would have gone on. I mean, I was so embedded in this like career path in corporate
Yep.
America, and it just opened up a whole new door for me that
Mm-hmm.
took years to kind of evolve. But again, it was like that one moment of awareness that
Yep.
kind of woke me up from this slumber, I guess. I don't know how
Yeah.
to describe it.
Yeah. And that can be it. You've felt this, something's not right here. And
Yeah.
you allowed yourself to dive into that. And look where you are now.
Yeah.
And it all started with that moment of awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Well, and
funny that,
same.
you were talking about as women, we get so wrapped up in our roles and everything. And I was thinking about I went on vacation when I was married. My kids and I went on vacation without my husband. He had to work. And we went to visit my dad and his wife. And And it was vacation. It was Florida. It was amazing. It was beautiful. We used to go there a lot. But my stepmother and I have really good conversations. And one of the conversations that we had a long time ago that really, really stuck with me still to this day was that she was saying that sometimes it's nice to just be able to shed a role for a minute.
Mhm.
Because I was there and I didn't, for this week of time, I was able to shed the role of wife for just a little bit of time. And that gave me more focus then on being a daughter, being a mother, being a woman on vacation, that kind of thing. And so I think that that was really a vivid illustration to me because I think, you know, men are not to stereotype at all, but men are generally really good at compartmentalizing, right? But women, we get all wrapped up and everything gets all mixed together.
Yeah.
And, we become just like this soup of a
Hmm.
person where everything is all mixed together. And I think that really makes it hard, especially for women, I think. Um, yeah, it's can be a really challenging time that, you know,
Yeah.
the 30s and then again, and then you hit it again. I just had my youngest leave home off to school and yeah, I mean, and then you hit it all over again. And
Yeah.
then you're like, okay, well, now what? I was this active parent and now what? I used to be a wife and I'm not anymore. Now what? You know,
So how
it's
do you
because we do get
navigate
so
that?
wrapped up. What's that?
Like how do you or how did you, I guess I should say,
Mm-hmm.
navigate that? Like what how did you figure out or start uncovering like what's next and what does
Mm-hmm.
feel aligned and pick apart, I guess, what you want to do versus all the old conditioning.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think a big part of it is just acknowledging what feels good, and allowing yourself to go with that. To say, well, does it feel good to continue on in this job? Or does that not feel good anymore? And I know that sounds like a really simple answer, but it so much of what we do is trying to stay up here and trying to think our way into or out of every situation. And it, that's not where it's at.
Yeah, I don't think it's easy, at least just looking at it from the standpoint, especially again of like motherhood. You're so used to putting other people in front of you,
Mhm.
and it's almost like this guilt around feeling good. Like, well, if I feel good, am I dropping the ball with them? Or and it's these like mind games that we're constantly playing in
Mm-hmm.
the back of our mind where it's almost like we refuse, like we're not giving ourselves permission to even
Yep.
think about what feels good until
Mm-hmm.
everyone else is taken care of first.
Right. Right. And yet, somewhere in there, we know that we can't provide what our kids or, our family needs if we're not full ourselves.
Hmm.
And again, it sounds so cliche, but it's so true. If you're running on empty, you can't be the kind of mom that you want to be, or, it's impossible to, not impossible, it's very difficult to go out and play and genuinely be with your kids in a moment when you're exhausted and you're thinking about
Hmm.
the laundry and
Yeah.
the, fact that you have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get to work, or you gotta still make dinner. And, it's if you haven't given yourself time to be in yourself, then you can't be present. with your in your family and in giving to other people,
Yeah.
and I think we all know that, being, especially like with our kids, being present is so much bigger than just being there.
Hmm.
If you're hanging out in the same room with your kid for 2 hours, but you're both just kind of doing your thing, or you're on your phone scrolling, or you're, doing, whatever else we do that takes up our time and attention. Or if you get 15 minutes with your kid and you're focused and you're sitting there playing a game and there is nothing else taking your attention away, and you've got that eye contact and you've got that connection with them, that's going to mean way more than spending 2 hours in the same room but not having that connection,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, I think we all need that reminder too, with
Mm-hmm.
the constant distraction on our phones and
Oh, yeah.
thinking, well, we're in the same room, so it's fine. But kids pick up on so much that,
Yeah.
we don't realize. And I remember hearing a long time ago, someone said that what kids really want, they just want a happy mom. Like they want their mom to be happy. And that really like hit me because for so long it's like I almost refused to like focus on that. It's like I've got to take care of, her and everything else. And it's
Yep.
like they that affects them. If you are happy and you're
Mm-hmm.
leading by example and doing things that light you up, kids
Mm-hmm.
notice that and then they learn that
Yep.
that's okay. And and so it's these
Yep.
things that there's so much programming that kind of needs to unravel.
Yeah. Oh, I went through some like old notes from my kids and stuff recently.
Hmm.
And it was stuff that I hadn't looked at in, 10, some of it 15 years. And some of the thing, like it was little notes from my kids, or, that they would write in school, or just leave little notes around. And so many of them were about, I love it when you read to me, even when you're busy.
Oh,
And yeah, and my favorite thing to do is color with my mom. And, these things. And I remember back to those times when I would think, like, I don't have time to sit and read this whole book. Like, maybe I can just like skim the pages, you know?
yeah. Hmm.
And what?
Yeah.
How was that not the most important thing
Right.
every night, you
Yeah.
know? Um, because that's the thing that they noticed at the time. And that's still what they talk about. We, just the
Yeah.
other day, my daughter pulled one of our old picture books off the shelf, and she's like, "Hey, Mom, will you read this?" You know, I mean, that's the stuff that matters to
Hmm.
kids. And if we don't take the time to take the time, you know, then some of these times are just going to pass us up.
Right.
But we have to be able to be present with ourselves in order to be present with our kids, or with, our family or our husbands or whatever. Yeah.
So true. And it's just like it's sad to think about, but it's a good reminder that someday you're going to look back at these times where you feel so rushed and be like, "Man, I wish I could have that back," when they're little. And it's a really good reminder.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
slow down, be
absolutely.
present, enjoy every day, not just like the big,
Mm-hmm.
vacations and things like that, but just the
Yep.
day to day.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Well, what is there like one message that you hope that every listener can take away from this conversation and your
Mm-hmm.
podcast, Edge of Real?
Uh, I think, I mean, certainly with my podcast, and I think with this, conversation too, I just want people to feel seen. I want people to know that they're important. Um, I want them to feel like they're related to, you know. We have so many of these moments that are universal And yes, we each have our own story within them, but a lot of what we feel is universal. And I think it's easy to become lonely or to get trapped within our own story. So I just want everyone to know that there are understanding people out there who see you. And I think that that's really important for everyone to remember.
And I
Um,
feel like your podcast does such a good job of making people feel that, like not just know it, but feel it. So
mhm.
everyone needs to go listen. It's called Edge of Real. Um, where else can people connect with you and continue
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. So I'm at Edge of Real Podcast on Instagram. Um, and yeah, you can listen to the podcast Edge of Real on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, everywhere else. Um, I do take a limited number of one-to-one coaching clients if anyone's interested. Just to save you from having to go through a bunch of links, you can just DM me on Instagram if you're interested. And I also have, I t took note of a few of the episodes that I think your audience specifically would really enjoy. And I've listened to so much of your podcast that I feel like I know your audience because your audience is me. So, episode 2 talks about some scientific explanations on neuroplasticity and quantum physics. And I know that your audience is, typically pretty interested in that. Episode 5 goes into frequency and how to embody your highest self. And episode 7 goes into the nervous system and why somatic work is the key to living in alignment. And I also put together a link that, Stephanie, I think you're going to share in the show
Show notes.
notes.
Yep.
That's a link specifically for your audience so they don't have to go find it. That's a free download of my journal for rediscovery, a guide for women awakening to who they truly are. And so, yeah,
Well,
I
amazing.
hope you listen and enjoy it and let me know if you do.
Yeah. Everyone listen. I'm telling you, it will awaken something in you, a memory, something, it's truly you have a good thing going and please stay with it because I am hooked now and I want to keep having episodes that I can binge.
Thank you.
Um, but Kristen, thank you so much for coming on and sharing and
Thank you
being
so much for
vulnerable.
having
I
me.
appreciate it.
This has truly been a dream for me. A little starstruck, so yeah, I love this conversation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. And thank you to everyone for listening. I will link all of that in the show notes so you can go check it out. And be sure to go and listen to the Edge of Real podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.